Are peace talks really happening between Prince Harry and King Charles? But would Prince William even allow it? What is the truth behind the claim that the late Princess Diana was jealous of Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh? And what does Meghan Markle's wine taste like? We're going to try it. All that to come and more on another packed episode of your favourite Raw show. Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Luke Blackall, standing in for Joe Elvin, who is on holiday this week. But we do have two familiar faces on the panel. The Daily Mail's diary editor Richard Eden and the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large Charlotte Griffiths, who's written a story this week that has put the cat among the pigeons. I'm not sure Richard is very happy about it. More on that later. Our weekly reminder that if you're not already subscribed to our channel, then please press that subscribe button, that little bell for the notification for those of you watching on TV. That way you get notified every time we put out a new video on the channel. For example, on Tuesday we released a special Q&A episode of Palace Confidential where Richard and Rebecca answered royal questions from you, the viewer. It was an absolutely fascinating one, so if you missed it, stick around to the end of the show and it will play straight afterwards. Right, that out of the way, let's get to my panel. And royal fans were hoping they might see the Princess of Wales at Wimbledon at least once during the tennis championships. In the end, they got her twice as she was on centre court to watch both the men's and women's singles finals. Richard, people really happy to see this, weren't they?
I think they were. It was, really lovely to see her again, particularly as we'd missed her during Royal Ascot, when you might remember she didn't appear and she was expected. We hadn't seen her during Wimbledon fortnight, so the fact that she came to present the trophies to the women's finalists and the men's the following day was terrific. So I think there was a real sense of excitement about it.
And there was a moment, because she brought, obviously the whole family, almost the whole family came on Sunday. Louis left at home. And William was really happy for her to take the lead, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, Catherine has a formal role at Wimbledon. I think she's the patron of the club. The Duke of Kent is still the president, and she's also involved with the Lawn Tennis Association. So I think they all love tennis, but it's kind of her, how would you say it? It's kind of her zone, her area, So William's happy to let her take the lead, and you can see she was when they were meeting the players, and but the children got a chance to ask questions, and it was lovely to see it as a family day out. I mean, yes, they didn't bring Prince Louis, but these matches can be long. I mean, the women's final was actually all over within an hour, but the men's was a terrific match, but it was a long one, and I think it'd be a bit too much to expect Louis to sit through the whole thing.
I think, yes, I was going to say, Charlotte, not everyone was so happy, and I mean this, of course, about George and Charlotte, who at the end, I think it's fair to say, looked a little disappointed.
Yes, I think they may have wanted Alcaraz to win, judging by George's face. There's an amazing meme. Well, there's that picture of him standing up, putting his hands down and scowling. And it kind of went around the world as a meme. And it's just brilliant to see. But, obviously George is probably not that used to disappointment at his young age, but you can't always get your own way. And I'm afraid the best man didn't win in his opinion this time.
I love Prince George's expressions. I always think when he's wearing his suit and everything, he looks very smart. He looks a bit like a sort of England football manager.
Yeah, actually you wouldn't want to get ticked off by him if he was your football manager, because he looks quite stern.
Yeah.
But he's got this very noble look about him, which I love, because he is going to be the next King of England, and he just looks every inch the sort of monarch in waiting already at the tender age of 12.
And as those of us who do watch sport, there's a fair amount of disappointment on the way, so you do have to learn that early. Charlotte, as is so often the case at Wimbledon, Catherine's outfit's got a lot of attention. It seems like a sort of hardy annual of the summer season. What Catherine wears to Wimbledon. Tell us about those outfits.
It's my favourite time of year watching Catherine grace Wimbledon, because she's so unbelievably elegant, and she gets that standing ovation. She's now had it 2 years in a row, and when she had it last year, she was brought to tears almost by it. And she just looks fabulous. She just knows how to do that Wimbledon look. I mean, I don't know if you remember Meghan a few years ago, but she did not nail the Wimbledon look. It's this kind of, it's not quite as regal as Ascot, it's sporty, and she wore a self-portrait dress on the first day, and then she wore a Roxanda dress on the second day, and looked just absolutely perfect. And she wore a hat, which is mildly controversial, because there are certain rules about whether or not you're supposed to wear a hat. but she looked fabulous. I think it was an LK Bennett hat. And, you know, who can blame her? It was absolutely boiling that day, and she probably needed a hat.
I was going to say, sitting out in the sun on that day, you absolutely need it.
And didn't Princess Charlotte look beautiful? She had a lovely dress too.
She looked so elegant. She is just a chip off the old block. She's just a mini Catherine, which I just adore. She's so beautiful.
And as I'm being told in my ear, because unfortunately I don't have all this information at my fingertips, she was wearing a Sarah Burton for Givenchy. So she's Charlotte.
Yeah,
so she's already picking up designers.
This blew my mind. She was wearing seriously high-end luxury, and she deserves it. For years, she wore Trotters, which is this British brand, sort of kids brand. I mean, high-end kids brand. But it's nice to see her in this new era getting kind of designer clothing, and she deserves it. She looks very regal when she does.
I think we have to mention Prince William's white trousers as well. Very natty. I've sort of always avoided white trousers, you know, because they do.
Well, especially at corporate hospitality, you're eating strawberries, you're going to get a red stain down the front.
He wore the brass buttons. I never thought I'd see Prince William wearing the brass button double-breasted suit. It's very Wimbledon, but it's very 80s. It's very what his dad used to wear back in the day. So I think maybe this is a real sign that he's hitting his mid-40s and sort of maturing into the next Prince Charles with his double-breasted brass buttons.
Well, I thought the family looked very stylish.
It did look very stylish, quite European royal. I thought there.
Yeah,
you know?
maybe as well.
Well, we had the King of Spain was there as well.
So they have to up their game, maybe. I mean, we don't scrutinise the male royals' fashion show much. Maybe we should. You know, always good to see them making a big effort. Richard, though, there was also an extremely moving moment at Wimbledon with Catherine and a young girl. Tell us about this.
Yes, this was a girl called Lydia who she met beforehand, and there's a very moving exchange. So Lydia had terrible health problems. She'd had some sort of brain problem that meant she lost her movement. She couldn't walk, talk, or read, and I think she's recovered from that. And Catherine sort of sweetly asked her for any advice on how, because this other girl had been out on court before, and said any advice. And Lydia said to her, just try and don't get too nervous and take deep breaths. So Catherine said, thank you, that's exactly what I'll do. So it was a very touching moment.
And good advice for anyone, actually. To another a moving moment, I think we could say, Charlotte, with Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. She was in Bosnia-Herzegovina, specifically an area called Srebrenica. Tell us about what she was doing there.
She was there to mark the 30th anniversary since a horrific genocide took place there. And on the 25th anniversary, King Charles was due to go, but couldn't go due to COVID. This time he wasn't able to go, I can only assume because he's going through cancer treatment. So he asked Sophie to take his place, and she read out a really moving and poignant speech from him. And for me, it was just another mark of how much respect Charles has for Sophie. And when he needs somebody to really step up to the plate and be very, very serious at a very, very moving event and to really take his place, it's Sophie he calls upon, because she's just so unbelievably reliable and calm and, and a little bit glamorous. And very interestingly, she did an interview afterwards about how she's the unsung hero of the royal family, which is something we talk about a lot on
Secret
Palace.
Weapon was
Secret
the phrase.
weapon,
Secret weapon,
that's
I think the phrase she used.
But she said very interestingly, it's all very well being the secret weapon, but somebody does have to actually see you at these things. You do actually have to make an impact. So it's just a little bit of a nod to the fact that she is the kind of secret weapon, but she doesn't need to be that secret. She can be more and more front and centre, and I think she will be as time goes on.
Well, I think we know. We always like to cover her here on Palace Confidential, and maybe she'll invite us on one of her trips, and we can do a special on it. Offer's always there to her team, I should say. Richard, sticking with Sophie, there was an extraordinary story in the Mail last weekend about what a certain Princess Diana thought of the new arrival. What did she think, and what did you make of it?
This is a new biography of Sophie that was serialised in the Mail and Mail on Sunday last weekend, and one of the most eye-catching lines was what Diana thought of her when she sort of entered the royal family. When she first met Prince Edward, she was very nervous about meeting Diana, understandably, because Diana was so famous, so loved, and so sort of important. And according to this biographer, Diana wasn't welcoming at all, that she would sort of stare daggers at her and sort of saw her as a potential rival and everything. I have no idea if that's correct or not. But certainly it was a difficult time for Diana, as we know. She tended to, she had quite a few problems at that point. And I think one of the things that she apparently was worried about was that Sophie was very sort of accepting of the way that things were done in the royal family, whereas Diana hadn't been. So she sort of saw this, Miss Goody Two-Shoes who was coming along doing what she was told and resented it. Well, that's certainly what this biographer is suggesting.
Which, of course, has echoes to claims that have subsequently made between Catherine and Meghan. You have someone who comes in not liking the system, another who fits in perfectly. So it's a really interesting one. That's the new biography by Sean Smith, which is serialised in the Mail. We'll put a link to that story in the description below. Well, if you're a fan of the show, then you'll want to keep across stories like this, and there is a new way to stay up to date with not only the latest royal news, but also what the Mail's unrivalled roster of royal experts has to say about them. Richard, why don't you tell us about it?
This is the Palace Confidential newsletter. It's been going for some years, but we're revamping it and making it even better, with more contributions from colleagues such as Charlotte, Rebecca and Richard Kay. So we're going to have, all the best royal stories of the week and some commentary from me, and just everything you need to know about the royal family, basically.
I would say it is unmissable. To sign up to the brilliant and free Palace Confidential newsletter, there is a link on screen now which you can click, or you can head to the description box below for more information. Right, let's go to some of your comments now. We'll start with one from the Q&A episode that went out on Tuesday. A reminder that will play straight after this. All you need to know about the royal family. Absolutely fascinating. Deborah Jennings writes, Canada here. We'd love to see a Palace Confidential tour of Canada. It would be such fun. I think we can all agree it really would be. We're going to follow Sophie, now we're off to Canada. We'd love to make that happen one day. Moving a little south now and onto a more sombre note, we had this from Jagged Little Pill. Hello from a sad and mournful Texas. The floods in the hill country was almost biblical. Still so many missing, 170 at last count. Watching your show helps take me away from the sadness of this gigantic natural disaster for a bit. I'm truly grateful. No one holds a candle to Princess Catherine. She just gets more beautiful by the day. Well, we send you and all our viewers in Texas our real best wishes from everyone here at Palace Confidential. We're also sending our best to Cricket Heron and friends at the Mercy Hospital in Oklahoma. They sent this message after last week's show. So much fun you three are having. Thank you for being so informative and a delight to watch. I'm on my 6th cancer in 10 years, and here in Oklahoma at Mercy Hospital, we watch you every week. Thank you for always including your audience. Princess Catherine is a wonderful example of how we can help each other to heal and succeed. Well, as I say, again, to all of you at the Mercy Hospital in Oklahoma and all of you going through similar experiences, all our best. Time for a couple of royal waves now to our international viewers. First up, we're waving to Joyful Bites, who writes, Love to Palace Confidential from India. My 13-year-old daughter and me watch your show every week, and we love it. To Southeast Asia now, and Lady Andark says, Richard Eden is the absolute charmer. And who are we to argue? That's from Rosalie, watching on Friday at 4 a.m. in Manila in the Philippines. Can anyone beat 4 a.m? That's a very early start. And this from Michal in the Middle East. Sending love from Israel. I never miss an episode of Palace Confidential, and Acting Royal is my new favourite show. Richard is brilliant, sharp, witty, and somehow always says exactly what I was thinking, but better. Keep up the amazing work. You make royal watching a treat. People who haven't watched Acting Royal, head back after this and check out some of the episodes. They are a lot of fun, featuring these two, certainly. Well, thank you to you and all our commenters this week. It's just fantastic to hear from you, particularly those across the globe. So do always let us know where you're writing from, and we love reading those out. So keep those coming in, please. Keep them polite, and you might find yours is read out on the show. Right, let's get back to my panel, as I want to discuss the bombshell story on the front of last week's Mail on Sunday. Written by a certain Charlotte Griffiths, it describes how Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's media team met King Charles's communications secretary for a secret meeting last week. Charlotte, tell us about how this story came about and what you understand the meeting to be about.
Well, the meeting was to reopen the lines of communication between the King and Harry, essentially. But of course, they're not doing it face to face themselves. They sent their aides along. And, you know, the fact is, these men haven't spoken for years, and this is the King of England and his son. And although many will say that, you know, Harry deserves to be frozen out of the royal family, underneath it all is a man who's got cancer, who hasn't seen his son for years and hasn't really ever got to know his grandchildren. And I think this was just the very first tentative baby step into exploring whether these two people can be in a room again one day. And certainly there's also a logistical element to it, which is just they need to make sure that their events don't clash. And, you know, that's really important for the king. The last thing he wants is to be doing an important event and find Prince Harry's, you know, walking in Angola. And in fact, this has actually happened.
Well, we will get on to that.
Yeah,
Look, Richard, Charlotte makes a point here, which is something we have discussed on this show before. I think we'll better have a little debate about it. We can be very civil here on Palace Confidential, as we always are. But Charlotte makes a point that we've discussed here on Palace Confidential before. There hasn't been communication between the two sides. So we have had these clashes, and, you know, we've seen Harry and Meghan's launch overshadow an important event done by one of the royals here. So from that point of view, it's a good idea, you could argue, that these two sides talk.
I don't think so, no. I think, first of all, I'd say who cares? I would say it's not a clash at all. Royal family do their thing, and then, you know, a couple of celebrities, minor celebrities in California can do their own thing. I don't think there needs to be any coordination. But in terms of a father and his son, well, surely he could do that himself. I mean, in the interview with the BBC, very bad-tempered, bitter interview he gave very recently, you know, Prince Harry said the king wasn't taking his calls at all. So surely, you know, if he wants to speak to his son, he can do that. It's pretty easy, isn't it? You can pick up a phone, answer the phone. You don't need to have, you know, representatives having a meeting, you know, in a club in London that suddenly finds itself, you know, on the front pages. To me, it seems an extraordinary way of going about things.
Charlotte, just on that, I mean, we should also say for journalistic transparency that Tobin Andre, the King's Communications Secretary, is a former colleague of all of ours. Does Rich have a point there? Should a teams be doing this? Is there not another relative who could be maybe bringing these things together if that's what is wanted?
Well, I do think that Charles is right to have a layer between him and Harry, because if I was Charles, I wouldn't want to pick up the phone to him because you don't know who's listening. Could be Meghan listening in the background. He could be writing notes down for the next Oprah interview he's planning to do. So I think Charles was very wise to have a layer of security, really, between him. You know, somebody who's passed messages back and forth. I don't know if it should be a relative. I think that complicates things. You know, they have people that work for them, and it's their job to do this. And, you know, you can see on the front page today, Harry's walk for the Halo Trust. Well, that's overshadowed Camilla's 78th birthday. I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing that they want to prevent happening. So for all those haters who think it's the worst possible idea that they've had this rapprochement meeting, think of Camilla, think of the Queen. Do we want to read about her birthday? I personally do, and it's been knocked off the pages by more antics from Harry. So, you know, why not coordinate? If Harry's in the mood to get back in with the royal family, maybe for once he'll actually comply and say, all right, Dad, you know, you choose your events and I'll work around them. You know, this is well overdue. I hope he does behave like this, because what he's done so far has not been good behaviour. And I think the King was very wise to, you know, get this man in line.
Charlotte, I want to follow that up with how much, I mean, obviously there's limits to what you can say, any journalist can say about sourcing and reporting, but what do you understand Harry's involvement in this to be? Presumably he knew that this meeting was going on. Did he know the story was going to come? What can you say?
I do think Harry did know that his aide was going to meet with Tobin, because those aides wouldn't be very good employees if they didn't fill him in.
And Meredith flew from LA for the meeting.
Bit of background to this. So Meredith Maines is the new head of their royal household. So they've got this sort of mock household over in Montecito. It's something I've been reporting on for a while. And they're trying to recreate that household structure. So Meredith Maines, who's the apex of that structure, came over to the UK for only 48 hours and just did the rounds, meeting with lots of different people, including other journalists and including Tobin, an ex-journalist. And so, you know, of course, Harry and Meghan knew who she was meeting and who she was going to meet and must have given it their seal of approval. And equally, one can only assume that the King gave his approval for Tobin to have the meeting. So I think all parties were in the loop. I'm fascinated to know whether William and Catherine were in the loop, because I think the King should consult with them going forward, because their opinion really matters.
You've preempted my next question because, of course, the glaring omissions, one you wrote about this week, we have to always be looking to the future, and anything the late Queen would do, Charles's team were always aware of. There was no representation from Kensington Palace, from William and Catherine's household. What did you make of that, and what do you think the implications of that are, Richard?
Well, from what I understand, so not only were they not invited to send someone to this meeting, which, this sort of peace summit seems pretty crucial, but they didn't know about it either. And they are treating it with extreme caution, as you might imagine. And I think what we can gather from it is that Harry and Meghan are trying to drive a wedge between the King and his heir to the throne. Just a few weeks ago, we have Harry talking about how, in quite an unpleasant way, about his father doesn't have long to live. And then we have this meeting, and without telling his brother who will be the next king. And it does make you kind of question his motives, in my opinion.
What do you make of that, Charlotte, this idea that they're trying to drive a wedge?
I think, honestly, these are two brothers. This is a family underneath it all. And I do know they have got history for wanting to drive a wedge between various members of the royal family with one another. And, God knows they have not been saints. That's the understatement of the century, possibly. But I don't think this was designed to drive a wedge between William and his father. He's a father with two sons, okay? So if one of the sons wants to see his dad, is that a hostile act towards the other son? I mean, just think of these people as a family, because I know they're a firm and a business, but they're a family. And Harry, as we know from that BBC interview, genuinely doesn't know how long his father has got to live. I mean, none of us know how long we've got to live. But it feels like Harry is out of the loop to the point where he's genuinely nervous that he might not see his dad again, in the next 5-10 years. He does want to somehow connect with his father. It's not a hostile act towards William per se to do so.
I mean, the two key points for Prince William and Catherine and others is this lack of trust, that they don't believe they can have any confidence that things they say or do will not appear in the future, because we have evidence of that happening in the past, obviously. And I have to say, the fact that this meeting then appeared in the paper kind of illustrates that. So they're very wary about that. But also that there hasn't been any apology still. I mean, as far as we know, Harry's still demanding apologies from his father, from William and Catherine.
But how do we know that this meeting wasn't his aide saying to the King's aides, by the way, Harry is drafting his apology right now. You can expect it in coming weeks. You never know. I mean, we don't know. We actually don't know.
Well, of course, we don't know. I mean, if it was, it would still take an extraordinary amount of forgiveness, presumably, given what has been said and what's happened, though.
And I think the public will probably never forgive Harry, although maybe some elements of the British public could. Certainly not Catherine and William fans. But and I don't think Catherine and William will forgive him anytime soon, and nor should they. But, we know the King is a very philosophical, cerebral man, and he does see the bigger picture. He may even price this kind of stuff in with Prince Harry, a bit like with Donald Trump's shenanigans. You kind of, or Boris Johnson, after a while you sort of price in a certain amount of bizarre, crazy kind of shenanigans. But, we don't know, but perhaps the King doesn't mind, because he is a father who wants to reconnect with his son. He knows what both sons have been through with their mother dying in a car crash. And he might just be feeling very philosophical, especially at this time as he's going through cancer, and give him a chink of light or a window into communication again.
Is it fair to say, Richard, that without all that being said, without William and Catherine's buy-in to this, without their involvement in any sort of peace talks, it's effectively dead in the water, because Charles wouldn't presumably act without the blessing of his son and heir?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one thing for his communications secretary. I have to say there is a bit of a tendency for us sort of as journalists to kind of elevate the importance of fellow journalists. But you do wonder if they were very serious that they would have got sort of private secretaries involved. It's notable it is his his communications man, his PR man, rather than a private secretary.
Or indeed a family friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could be even a family friend. There's plenty of those who still maintain feet in
So that would suggest it's more sort of technical. But I think whatever is said at these type of meetings, it doesn't necessarily mean that anything much will happen, particularly as for anything major, you do feel the king would have to consult his son and heir.
But who's to say William and Catherine would say no? Dad, no, absolutely not. You must never speak to him again, because that's doing them a discredit and a disservice. Catherine herself has been through cancer, and she's a very, wise and incredibly important member of the royal family. And no doubt she is rightly very angry with what's gone down. But she's also incredibly kind and probably sees the bigger picture as well. She's a real soothing balm for William, always has been. William may well rail against Harry forevermore, but she might just be behind the scenes saying, don't deny Harry the chance to see his dad again. His dad is going through cancer. You never know. I think this idea that, it's awful for Prince William for those two to reconnect, it kind of makes them seem bitter and twisted. Whereas I actually think that if anything, they've gone past the bitter and twisted and angry phase, haven't they, William and Catherine?
I think more likely, I think they would say, yeah, fine, if you want to go ahead and, see your son, we understand that, no problem with that, but don't expect us to be playing happy families.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Or sign up to a royal return, as it were.
Exactly, no, I mean, that would probably spell the end of the monarchy, in my view.
Well.
Even I agree with that, by the way.
Hopefully the monarchy in no danger. We'll of course follow that story really closely here on Palace Confidential. Fantastic talking to the journalists at the heart of it. We're sure you'll have lots to say in the comments below. Please keep those civil. We look forward to discussing that next week. We're going to stick with Prince Harry though, aren't we? Because Charlotte, straight after this trip, as you mentioned briefly there, he went off to Africa. Tell us what that was all about.
Yeah, Harry went to Angola to retrace his mother's footsteps. So this is the Halo charity which seeks to disable mines in Angola. This isn't the first time Harry's retraced his mother's footsteps. She walked 28 years ago along the landmines, and there were these iconic photos because, of course, they were so incredibly dangerous for her. And tragically, later that year, she did actually die in a car crash. So those photos could not be more iconic or poignant. And Harry has recreated them. Now, I have to say, if this was the 30th anniversary since she walked them, I'd say, yeah, okay, the timing is coincidental. But it's 28 years. It's not a sort of landmark number of years. And it's within, I think he landed there 6 days after the story broke about the rapprochement and the fact that he wants to be seen in a more favourable light, really, across the world. And he's ready to put an end to this era of him being hated. And I've got to say, I draw a conclusion between those two things. I think it was very much a calculated move to refresh his image.
But no doubt, still a very important charity. Richard, what did you make of this, the timing and the fact that he went alone rather than with Meghan?
I have to say, first of all, the Halo Trust does a lot of good. I mean, Angola still has thousands of mines that they're trying to disable. So, to say that for first. But the whole thing, to me, it does look like a sort of rather desperate sort of publicity stunt in the sense that, yeah, he went there in 2019 and did the same thing anyway, and kind of trying to recreate what your mother did. It's just a bit weird, really. I mean, look, landmines are actually a growing problem, and one of the problems is in Europe that countries have decided to start using them again because of the war in Ukraine and the threat from Russia. So there's more countries moving towards that. So, it's a big, serious issue. But I think this sort of trying to recreate what his mother does is not the best way to go about it at all.
Can I just say, he is the patron of the charity, so presumably he is called up once in a while to actually generate some publicity for it. So, there's also that argument. He's just doing his job.
And he has faced criticism from Centre Barley, for example, as one of his charities, for not being there enough. Yeah. So presumably he does have this push and pull. He does need to be seen to be doing these things.
I mean, in terms of Meghan and not being with him, I think that does, it's another indication of what we've seen, which is this kind of pursuit of separate careers, really, separate lives to that extent. And at the moment, as we know, Meghan's incredibly busy with her businesses trying to make money, and then Prince Harry is happier focusing on the charity work and that type of thing. Obviously, he doesn't have Centre Bali anymore. The Halo Trust is not his charity, it's just a charity of which he's patron, same as others like Well Child. And so he wants to be involved in that, and I think it almost doesn't make sense to have Meghan with him because she's not part of that. But yeah, it does illustrate a growing divergence, and I know you mentioned that in your story.
Yeah, I think it shows an awareness that if Meghan's with him, it detracts from the charity. He would probably say because of the awful press and it's a media circus, and indeed the Halo charity did ban British press specifically, with, I assume, Harry's blessing. But I have to say, and I don't know the answer to this, but I would have thought Meghan would be desperate to walk in Diana's footsteps and have a set of iconic photos just like that. And I do wonder whether Harry has sort of said, no, you can't come. And if so, it's a possibly rare moment of strength from him, giving his wife a bit of pushback, which is certainly a development. But I don't know if she was desperate to go, but I just, knowing Meghan as I do, and we all have from afar, she knows the importance of a powerful image. And I bet she would have loved to sort of have the photo of her right next to Princess Diana.
Come on. We all know that what Meghan wants, Meghan gets. I can't believe Harry wouldn't. He would say yes to her for anything.
So do you think she just didn't want to go? Maybe she didn't want to go. She couldn't be bothered.
Busy. She's got a lot of videos to make.
She's got rosé to drink.
A lot of jam to make.
Well, you lead us nicely on to my next topic. Meghan's new rosé wine. It got a lot of attention, sold out very quickly, but what does it actually taste like? One of the Mail's star columnists, Jan Moyer, managed to get hold of a couple of bottles, and she sent us this report.
So this just isn't any old rosé. This is the Duchess of Sussex rosé, which, according to the blurb, she thoughtfully curated and thoughtfully crafted herself. Now, I don't imagine that she was like tramping the grapes up in the Napa Valley. What is astonishing to me is that the alcoholic content of this wine is 14.5%, which is incredibly high. I mean, in Scotland, we would call this wreck the hoose juice. I mean, it's very, very, very strong for a rosé. Most European rosés are only 12.5. And if you take something like Whispering Angel, which is not only the best-selling rosé in America, it's the best-selling rosé in the world, I think, and that's only 12.5%. So it's a very, very high alcoholic content. Price-wise, the Duchess is selling this for $30 a bottle, which is about £22, and you have to buy it in a pack of 3. You can't just buy one bottle, you've got to buy the pack of 3. So it's very expensive, and it's very high in alcohol. So let's give it a taste. Well, it looks like rosé. It smells like rosé. I want to be honest with you. It's a bit too sweet for me for a start. It's quite fruity. She says it's got notes of minerality in it. I don't get that. I get stone fruit. It's a bit plummy. As I said, it's just not my favourite style of rosé. I mean, a lot of people do like it. I prefer the paler ones from the Mediterranean because that's the kind of person I am.
And a bottle has found its way here too for the panel to enjoy. We've also got a few of other Meghan's As Ever products. Richard, give it a go. Tell us what you think. Fruit, scent, flavour. Richard, what a face!
Sort of sweet at first, but with a bitter aftertaste.
Now, Richard, I don't know what you could be talking about there.
Genuinely, it does have quite an unpleasant aftertaste.
Charlotte, it's quite strong, isn't it? It's 14.5%, which is quite a lot for a rosé.
Yes.
What could you see yourself drinking this on a picnic?
Well, do you know, I don't actually drink, so I will have one sip and be completely sloshed because I've got no tolerance left, and it's 14%. So I'm going to try some. Oh God, I've missed that.
14.5%.
Maybe I'll take up drinking again. It's been about 5 years. That is strong and fine. It's fine. I can't remember what your question was now.
I was going to say, could you see yourself drinking on a picnic? But if you don't drink, then, generally...
No, I could see myself putting that on the table at a picnic. All my friends would refuse to drink it. But I think it makes an elegant addition to a table. Who doesn't love a glass of frosty cold rosé?
I think if it was sort of, £5, you might think great, but I think it's about $30, isn't it, a bottle?
I think you have to buy 3. I think they only come in sets of 3. So
I would certainly be giving away the second 2 as a gift, I think.
Can I say my beef is with the bottle rather than the flavour? I don't think it's a very fancy bottle.
You know the etiquette
it's
on the
not
front.
very stylishly designed in a beautiful sort of designery sort of way.
It's very.
You're saying we should or shouldn't judge a bottle by its cover?
I judge the bottle by its cover. I think it needs an upgrade, a taller neck, and more elegant foil.
There you go.
Love is in the details.
Absolutely. You've heard it here first. Do please, if any of you have tried at home, any of that stuff, let us know in the comments. Now, a lot of you last week were very taken with Richard's foray into the world of Cameo.
Hi, Rachel, from me in Windsor in London. Tammy tells me that you're a big fan of the royals. So I'm here with Windsor to wish you a happy birthday. I understand you live in New Orleans. You're very lucky. I'd love to visit, but never have. Hi David, thanks for your message. In answer to your question, yes, definitely, keep going.
That was, of course, our very own Richard Eden there, along with Windsor the dog. I think part of them are actually really signing up for getting Buy Richard, Get Windsor for free. Maybe you want your own Richard video. He can give you a pep talk or some advice to someone you know. If so, head to the link on screen now, and we'll put a link to that in the description below too for your very own Richard Eden personal video. Right, do you hear that? That's right, that's the fanfare that heralds the moment when we celebrate an unsung royal hero of the week. Now, Richard, we mentioned a very beautiful dog, royal named dog, a moment ago, and our hero this week is a little hairier than usual, isn't he?
Yeah, this was a photograph released by the palace, and it was of Queen Camilla with her new puppy called Molly, and he's a Jack Russell cross, I think. Very sweet picture, and she's had this dog quite recently, and it was the first picture of her with Molly, so it's very sweet, and it came ahead of her birthday, and I think it was taken by the same photographer, Chris Jackson. She's wearing the same outfit. But it's interesting though that the dog stays at Camilla's own house, Raymill House in Wiltshire. I'm not sure the King's welcomed him in yet to the palace, but
we have heard reports of dogs biting furniture, haven't we? And maybe the furniture in the palace a little more precious. And of course, there is a link between last week's royal hero and this one. You just mentioned Chris Jackson there. It was his wife, Natasha Archer.
Yes, last week we were discussing her departure as Princess Catherine's stylist and personal assistant. She's gone to set up her own business, so it's all go in that household.
Oh, well, of course, had the birthday portrait up for you as well, because as Richard says, the day we're recording this is Queen Camilla's birthday. She's 78 today. And what do you get the woman who presumably has everything? We thought about sending her some of Meghan's rosé, but then we thought we could do even better than that and devote the world-famous Palace Confidential montage to her. There are some great ones here. Well, happy birthday to Her Majesty from all of us here at Palace Confidential. A reminder, if you want to stay up to date on all things royal, make sure you sign up to our free Palace Confidential newsletter. There's a link on screen now and indeed in the description below. Up next, another chance to see Richard and Rebecca English answer your questions in a new question and answer episode of Palace Confidential. You can click here for that. Just time to say thank you to the panel today, Charlotte and Richard, and as always to you at home for watching. Jo will be back in the hot seat next week, and I hope Rebecca might be here too. We want to hear her views on the developments of the last couple of weeks. I hope you as well can join us then. Just time to say cheers again to my guests. I'll reach over. Goodbye.